All righty, let's go ahead and call the Property Committee meeting to order this evening for Thursday, November 9th, 2023. It is 5 p.m. With the roll call, it looks like we have 5 members present, only missing member Bloomfield, which brings us to number 2, the consent agenda. Consent agenda includes the approval of our minutes as well as our bills and transfers. This evening's consent agenda total is $6,182,597.47. As a reminder to everybody, this is where we have the PBC, PBC information for our payment as well as operations. Might I have a nomination to put this one on, might I have a nomination to put this one on the floor for discussion? All right, we have a motion by member Byrne. Do I have a second? Second by member Bell. Any comments, questions, or concerns on the consent agenda items? All righty, let's go ahead and put this one to vote then. All in favor of passing the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? And the consent agenda passes. Thank you. That brings us to item number 3, appearance by members of the public or county employees. Administrator Taylor, do we have anyone to speak this evening?
We do. I'm pleased to invite Mr. Jim Pearson. He is here. You have a deliverable in front of you, a packet with his proposed development project, and he would like the floor. He'll have 5 minutes to speak on his proposed plan. Welcome.
Button. Am I on? Okay. As Cassie has said, I am president of the Vantage Group Limited of Bloomington. The Vantage Group is a local developer of commercial and institutional properties. I presented a book for you, which we can go through quickly. And I can give you a little bit of history so far as I never appeared before the property committee 8 years ago, but I brought this idea of land that you own, which is owned by the building commission of McLean County. I think that's it. It's a special committee, I think, that buys land for government's use. I brought it to Hannah Eisner. I knew her. She was assistant administrator at that time. And she said, well, let me take this to Bill Lawson. So she got back to me and said, well, the county wasn't interested at that time. So why don't you just open the booklet that you may hopefully have. I'll give you some background if you desire on why this piece of property. But obviously on the first cover letter inside, you can see this proposal. We would like to purchase the property. And what, in essence, is to move this through the county so far as my goal would be to have a preliminary agreement based on the contingency that the project will go forward and can be financed. So it wouldn't be just buying the property and then you're not sure what's going to happen. So the description here is hopefully straightforward. The east, well, I have underlined about access to parking, but basically on the front cover, East Front Street Hotel. And what I'm proposing is, at the moment, is like 60 rooms. There's no hotel downtown here for the arena. And that's a story back when they built it 17 years ago. Across the country at that time, in 2006, 114 civic centers had been built, conference centers. 97% of them had a hotel with them. The 3% that didn't, Bloomington was one of them. I think it's very necessary. And then Withers Park Lofts, if you're familiar with downtown. That was where the first library was built. So, and there's a grass area there by PNC Bank. So, as that on that one cover letter, 60 hotel room development, maybe 24 loft for rentals. There was desire back in 2019 when State Farm wanted to sell its fire building. I looked at that very seriously and came up with maybe 60 apartments. There was a need, or the politicians, let's say, we need apartments downtown for kids, adults. Lofts, to me, could be for retired people who want to keep in touch with Bloomington Normal, but may move someplace else for part of the time of a year. So they might be timeshares, but a modified plan. And then I can visualize a restaurant. There could be one on the ground floor, but up high to overlook three major pieces of our downtown River City. And so if you just flip through real quickly, what I've put together is a master plan that was developed by the city. They have to do these every 10 years. The first flip out's kind of what's existing along Washington Street. The second one is got colorful of the map of the downtown. And of course, there's a highlighted red rectangle there that will show you where this property is, which I'm sure you know, but it's kind of like a commonplace area because it's a parking lot right now. The next fold out is called Relevant. It's the middle one on the right-hand side. If you take time to read some of the stuff, is where development could really be or should be. And then the next one is
Mr. Pearson, I apologize. Time's up, but
okay.
if everyone's okay, we can give you about a minute to wrap if that's appropriate. Are we comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So just to keep going, this one is just could be the facade of the hotel. And of course, the last three pages are the actual property. Two parcels. And then the very last page is a conceptual concept of how the building might tend to look in areas that would be lofts, hotel, apartments, and parking. Parking will be 2 levels. Secured parking, the lower level would be actually into the ground and be below grade on Front Street. And the other one would be higher, so thank you. And then I know more things have to go on, but I'll tell you, you can't do a project unless you got a piece of land.
Certainly.
So I
Thank you very
chose
much.
the land before I owned it. But with your help and the county's participation, this can turn into a revenue producing property and good for the community. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pearson. Thank you for your time,
you.
for the presentation and information. All right. Administrator Taylor, did we have any other requests to speak this evening?
We had no other requests.
Okay, thank you very much. Folks, that'll move us along to item number 4 on today's agenda with departmental matters. This is where we go to A, where we are with Mr. Gaither, Director of Facilities Management. Looks like Mr. Gaither has 2 items to be presented for action this evening. First item for action is the request approval of contract addendum with Otis for elevator maintenance and government center. Might I have a motion to put this one on the floor for discussion? Got a motion by Member Byrne. We have a second by Vice Chair Soldner. Mr. Gaither, over to you for any additional information.
Essentially, this contract is just, to add the elevators in this building to the contract that we have in place for our Law and Justice Center for the contracts. We previously have been with Kone, and that is expired or expiring, and so we just wanted to go with Otis for our service contract on these elevators.
Thank you, Mr. Gaither. Any comments or questions from the committee? We have Mr. Solder.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. So enlighten me a little bit. This is additional 5. How many do we have altogether then?
Oh,
Sorry for the quick
No.
question.
no, that's a good question. I think we're at 18 people elevators, I believe. And then we have a couple of the wheel elevators in this building.
Right?
We have a sidewalk lift in the Law and Justice Center. So I think it's 18 actual people elevators. And then there's other, like the wheel elevators is listed differently. And then the sidewalk lifts are no longer classified as elevators. But I think there's 21 if you include the wheel elevators and the sidewalk lifts.
And is this, this $250 a month, is that what we're paying for those other ones also?
I believe so.
Okay. How does that compare to the previous contract?
I think it has gone up a little bit. The biggest thing is the service that we're receiving is I think what we're seeing is a much quicker response time when we have elevator issues.
And so this is more than just inspecting.
Correct.
Now, if there's an issue, then I assume there's a charge or whatever for that also, depending on what it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's an entrapment, there's a fee for emergency response. There are some different fees involved in that.
Okay. All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
Member Tompkins, did you have a question as well? No? Okay. Other comments or questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and put this one to a vote. All those in favor of approving 4A1A, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion passes, which brings us along to 4A1B, the request approval for the WASI Group proposal for architectural scanning of county buildings.
I'm going to take this one because kind of headed up the project so far. We have an ongoing asset management and preventative maintenance program through Brightly software. In digging into this and inputting all the information, we realized that we're kind of behind on drawings and accuracy. Without that, we're prevented from moving forward. We went back and forth on the best way to do it and reached out to this WASI group and had a meeting with them, and very much like what we heard. We think they can provide the services we need, baseline maps, and then it goes far beyond that. The reason we would like to use the 3D laser scanning, once they set up and they do that work, all the other items that are mentioned as far as the high density photos and things like that, they call it fly through. Viewing and imaging. Since the labor's already done, that part of it is a very small portion, but more or less it's going to give us accurate building drawings to use for this software project. And honestly, any project moving forward with any of the 3 main buildings being the Law and Justice Center, Government Center, and Health Department. We just don't have the accuracy we need from changes in the past, and this will give us a fresh start and allow us to utilize it for any projects inside the buildings with an accurate count of rooms and measurements and everything that we need. Does anyone have questions on it?
Member
Yes, sir.
Tompkins.
When they do this scan, does the county then retain unlimited use of all the scanned materials, or is there some sort of a fee or storage or anything like that?
There is no fee. We will own the information when it's done. They will provide us with the fly-through ability through the buildings with photographic accuracy, and then building drawings and plans that can be printed or filed used by architects, anything above. It's very, very exciting for us because we deal with a lot of the older drawings. So this will give us cutting edge technology to be able to get through projects in a more accurate way.
Can you give me an example of how that would be used, like in the next year or so? Like, what are some immediate short-term projects that you can envision this being used and being helpful towards?
As I mentioned, the Brightly software is really where we were kind of stuck because it's an asset management and it allows county employees to put in work orders. Right now, there's a communication issue because some room numbers are labeled a certain number on one prints and then later they're a different number. Some are identified by name, which we know obviously as turnover or someone retires, it's no longer accurate. So the Brightly software is a big part of it, why we're pushing this forward now. But another example would be this room, although it was done by the city of Bloomington. Any remodel, anything that's going to show us where the accuracy is of the walls and the mechanicals and things like that so that we can start on a good footing and not try and piece together older prints, and that's what we're doing right now. Anyone else?
Vice Chair Sullivan.
Thank you. So, excuse my ignorance, but when I hear it scanning, this isn't gonna be so intricate that it will see a crack in the wall or any structural flaws or anything like that?
It will go down to 1/8 of an inch.
Really?
Yes. So if you visualize this room, I mean, all the light fixtures, just that little inset, it will pick up every nook and cranny on the walls, the clocks, the cameras, the TV screens. Yes,
Okay.
down to 1/8 of an inch.
And then again, I assume that part of it will be if you wanted to figure out how much carpeting it would take for a floor or whatever, you could go to your software and figure that out.
Very easily, yes.
The other
That's-
thing is where the figure is for the cost, it says billed monthly. Is that just oversight, or is that just they're gonna send you one bill in a month, or how does that? I don't understand. This isn't a continual process,
No, it's a
correct?
one-time fee.
Okay,
Honestly, not sure why it says that.
Okay.
Because these are flat fees. I have it in other documentation too. So it's a one-time, the information is compiled and given to us. They keep a copy as well in case if we lose or need additional, but it is not a monthly bill.
and then it says additional services at $75 an hour.
Yeah, we talked to them about our archive of old drawings, about scanning those in and getting them digitized, so I asked for that to be included. I
Okay,
don't think we're gonna proceed with that. We have another method to get that done
Okay.
a lot more efficiently. So.
all right, thank you.
And then since they're retaining a copy of it, are there any potential security concerns with them also retaining that information?
I don't think so. I mean, it's
Okay.
public buildings, so they're just gonna be scanning areas that other people are gonna see. Obviously, we do need to do courtrooms and things like that, but no, there'll be no security codes or door locks or anything like that on it.
Great, thank you very much. All right, additional questions?
Yes.
Member Bell?
Yes, thank you. This is like what the hospitals have. Is this correct, how they do things, how they know
That's
how many
my-
rooms they have and stuff like that?
That's my understanding,
Okay.
yes.
This is kind of funny, but I didn't realize the courthouse had a penthouse to it. Is this correct, and how do I get up there?
Yes, the Law and Justice Center has a penthouse. You want to escort?
I'd be happy to give you an escort, but it's kind of misleading. The penthouses are actually utility rooms in these type of commercial buildings. So they'll house a lot of your heating and cooling equipment. So it's not very glamorous, but I'd be happy to give you a tour sometime.
Kind of an interchangeable word, I guess, but yeah, it's a mechanical penthouse.
All righty, might I have a motion to vote on this one? We've got a motion by Member Byrne, might I have a second? Second by Member Bell. All those in favor to pass motion 4A1B, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion passes. That brings us along to A2, on to Mr. Gaither, your monthly report.
Thank you. As you can see in the report, we are in our final stages of finishing up the current animal control buildings remodel from the flood. We are down to buttoning up the office spaces now. It is obviously a little slower when you get to those because all your office equipment's in there, so there's a lot of moving equipment, but the anticipation is hopefully the plan is to be able to tell you guys next month when we meet that that's all buttoned up and finished up. So we are very close on that. I think one of the more exciting things for me in this, which probably sounds boring to some people, is the boiler project has started at the juvenile detention. So those are exciting for us, just because of the changes in the cost. So there'll be a lot of energy efficiency that we recoup and the automation side of it. So that's probably the most exciting part on there for me. So, but does anybody have questions on it?
All right, seeing no questions, thank you very much. Thank you to you and to your team for all of the work that y'all have done over the last month, and yay for the boiler project.
Thank you.
Love to hear about those future efficiencies. This brings us along to 4B. This is Mr. Steffa, our Direction of Parks and Rec. It doesn't look like we have any items for action this evening, but Mr. Steffa, turn it over to you for your monthly report.
Yeah, the only thing I have is a monthly report. I guess a couple of the highlights I can talk about is the phase 2 of the road surfacing project at the park. It was supposed to be wrapped up by Monday. It's now gonna be tomorrow. So we're very excited and grateful for that. After the asphalting is done, the county highway department will come back in and do what's called feathering out, filling in rock where there's a little bit of a drop off, especially around our parking areas and our campsites. The only other thing I have is to let you guys know, and you may already know, but the old boat rental building is no more. It was raised on the 23rd of October. And it's no longer there. So that project, we're happy that it is wrapped up.
Thank you very much. Exciting stuff all the way around, especially a big thanks to the Transportation Department in continuing on the road project. Lovely to hear, especially when something gets done a little early, or earlier than expected. So
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Comments or questions for the Parks Department? All right. That carries us along. Thank you very much, Mr. Steffa. That carries us along to item C. We go to Cassie Taylor, our County Administrator. We have one item to be presented for action this evening. That is the request approval of an amendment to fiscal year 2024 recommended budget for the Facilities Management Department Juvenile Detention Center Program. Might I have a motion to put this one on the floor for discussion? Got a motion by Member Bell. Do I have a second? Second by Vice Chair Solder. Administrator Taylor, over to you.
Thank you. So as you can see in your memo, this is an amendment to the budget for the JDC Facilities Department. This was necessary due to a late change in the EAV. And so in order to keep our tax rate flat, which is the direction of our budget, in May, we have a budget policy that is enacted, and that was the directive in that policy. And so in order to do that, we need to drop the corporate general fund by $196,841. This is able to be realized because a project at the JDC that was going to be completed partially in 2023 and partially in 2024 was able to be completed in 2023 and came in well, our facilities group was able to find a way to do it in a more efficient manner. So we are no longer in need of these funds. So it was a win-win as far as that goes.
And if I could just overly simplify, so there is,
Okay.
are we good? Okay.
There is a Scrivener's error in the memo. This is for next year's budget. This is for 2024.
Thank you. So just to be overly simplistic then, with this adjustment, there is no service or no process or anything that is not going to be happening.
That is
It
correct.
really is simply adjusting the budget because of an efficiency that was able to be happen because of our staff. And some minor adjustments along the way.
Yes, it's not that, you are correct that it's not that a project is going to be left undone.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Additional comments or questions? All right,
I'm
Member Bell?
happy to see that happen. I was scared that something was going to get cut, but it makes me feel really good about things. Thank you for doing that.
All right, let's go ahead and put this one to a vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, and the motion passes. Continuing along, we've got item number C1B. That's a request approval of fiscal year 2024 recommended budget for the PBC Lease Fund 0161, including B1, the Law and Justice Building Department, 0045, Law and Justice Building Program, 0050, and B2, the Government Building Department, 0115, Government Center Program, 0115, and I think that's, and that one's, yeah. So we don't need the additional and. So might I have a motion to put that one on the floor for discussion, please? All right, we have a motion by Member Byrne, second by Member Bell. Administrator Taylor?
Yes, thank you, Chair Lehman. This is a part of your fiscal year 2024 recommended budget for PBC leases. And so this would be what we budget for our 2015 bond issue and our 2022 bond issue.
Thank you very much. Comments or questions? All right. All right. All of those in favor of passing B1 and B2, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion passes.
You could take the next one all together
Say
as well.
all together as well? All right, so moving on to C1C, that's the request approval of the fiscal year 2024 recommended budget for the PBC Rent/O&M Fund 0162, including C1, the Facilities Maintenance Department, 0041, Juvenile Detention Program, 0022, and C2, the Facilities Maintenance Department, 0041, Courthouse Program, 0049, and C3, the Facilities Maintenance Department, 0041, Animal Control Program, 0065, and C4, the Law and Justice Building Department, 0045, Law and Justice Building Program, 0050, and C5, the Government Building Department, 0015, Government Center Program, 0015. Might I have a motion to put it on the floor for discussion? Motion by Member Bell, and a second, please. Second by Vice Chair Soldner. Thank you very much, Administrator Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Lehman. Similarly to the last action item, this is a request for approval for the fiscal year 2024 budget. This is the O&M, the operation and maintenance costs that are budgeted for all of those buildings respectively.
Comments or questions from the committee? All righty. With no comments or questions, putting items C1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to a vote, all of those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion passes. That takes us over to C2, Items to be presented for information, we have C2A with a spatial study. Administrator Taylor?
Yes, thank you. If Mr. Charnet could come up, thank you. So the long-awaited spatial study is, the draft form is now final and is in your packet, starting on pages 28. And Mr. Paul Charnet is with us tonight to give us a brief overview and walk you through that document. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Charnet.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to, first of all, complete the work, and as well to present it. Love for you all just to think back to the time when this originally was built, and it had nothing to do whatsoever with administrative or government services at all. It was for a bank. And here we are, quite a number of years later, trying to look at what it could be and what it has been, and how the heck did we get here with some of the organic development that has happened in the building. So one of our considerations as we looked at all of this was to understand exactly what relationships had changed over the years, but also to recognize how they could change in the upcoming years. And so as we looked at all of this, we performed an analysis, we performed some recommendations, or laid out some recommendations as part of this. And the biggest question I first want to ask is, for whom is the building working? And I think it's very different from the public side, that the answer to that is very different from the public side versus from the staff side. And we saw a lot of challenges that have happened from the public. We also saw a lot of things that are working okay. But in all, I'll just kind of point you through, and we'll go quickly through some of the things that we think are working. Centralized access, you're right downtown. This is ideal. It works out so nicely. You have two government entities in one building. Couldn't ask for something better in terms of efficiency in government. That's awesome. And this was a very intentional partnership when it was put together and conceived many years ago. As far as personnel, what we heard back from the surveys were generally that people want to work here, which is a really good thing. You don't see that in every entity out there, even in private practice. And it's really exciting for us to see that exact feedback. You chose to be in government, even though sometimes it's maybe not the pay that you wanted it to be, but you are serving the public directly, and it's pretty noble. As far as the building quality, hey, this thing was designed to be a modern masterpiece. It's still covered in travertine. It's gorgeous, but there are some things that have aged poorly. However, you do have really cool cafeteria. That was a consistent comment. Actually, one of the big positives of the building as it sits is that there's a lot of space here. We're going to get into this in a little bit of, but there are some challenges with how that space is laid out. But in general, we exceed most standards by over 15%. So as you look across the building here, it's a matter of efficiency and how we can find some of those things. Plus the building's cut up a little bit and it was designed for a bank, so there are vaults everywhere. But again, we'll get into that. If you look at pages 5 and 6 of the report, I just want to point out, these are some standards that we pulled from the state of Colorado. And these are very common. This is what we design around a lot throughout the country. They are not necessarily unique to Colorado. They're just in a public document that I could find from Colorado.
And that's on pages 33 and 34 in
Oh,
your
excuse me.
packet. Different
Yes.
numbering.
Thank you. And it helps to look at what should we expect in terms of storage space? What should we expect in terms of conference room spaces, the diversity of conference room spaces, the diversity of office sizes, what cubicles should look like. This gives you kind of a brief overview of a lot of those. And we looked at a number of standards. That's the one that simplified it the most, but I really want to encourage you to use that as a rubric, because that is actually one of the first things that we know we need to change. In working together, and over the last 20 years of renovations and space reconfigurations, there have not been space organization standards, and so it's been kind of a grab and go. as we can. And so far it's worked, but it hasn't been without compromise. And so there are a lot of challenges in working in that environment. And I think with some proactive planning and some proactive layout, we can accomplish some things in a much more efficient manner. I'd also point you to, the next 2 pages here in your packet. Just looking at the pictures of these 3 different office environments, all of those are common in this building. And I can tell you which one I'd want to work in. I certainly wouldn't want to work with the one that's in a tunnel. So I'd also like to just quickly point out internal access. That was cited as being one of the biggest problems. We know navigability to this facility is a huge issue. Accessibility, because of the navigability issues, is a challenge. And it's also, quite frankly, somewhat embarrassing for someone who is wheelchair bound to be able to get into the building from the front street side. It is a bit of a spectacle, and I think that's really unfortunate. We've had some aging facility issues. We recognize some of those. But the other big thing I wanted to point out was storage. We have storage everywhere in this building, and some of it is leftover storage. Some of it is storage that is associated with regional planning or with elections or with the county clerk or with the city, and not all of it is as well defined as we would have liked. Ms. Taylor had hoped that we were able to come up with something that was a little bit more streamlined, that would show approximate square footages. I couldn't come up with a number because of storage. It's so commingled in many areas that it's impossible to tell which is which and who belongs to what and what belongs to whom. And on page 13 of my report, which is, I don't know what it is on your report, I should add on, there are just a few photos of some of the storage spaces that we ran into. Thank you. And then, following along on the next page, the workplace flexibility. Wherever we could, we found some spots to just jump some things in. And unfortunately, this is what happens when we act reactively instead of proactively in space planning. So what do we do about it? Our recommendations for all of this first began with a joint commitment. We encourage you to look with the city on how we can best utilize some of this space. And we had a number of meetings, we had a number of surveys that came in that support all of these resolutions. But we first and foremost wholeheartedly recommend a strategic plan for spatial improvement. And we, as I referenced before with the Colorado standards, they also reference new building standards such as WELL or FitWell. Some of that consider things like psychological or physiological requirements. For instance, some of this fluorescent lighting can give people headaches. LEDs are wonderful, we love those, it's great. But as we look at changing some of these spaces, you have a given ceiling grid. What does that do? Now we're considering things like HVAC, lighting, et cetera. There's a lot of repercussions to some of this. And so this has to be taken into consideration, and that strategic spatial improvement plan would detail out how do we do that as economically as possible. As far as regularizing review, something that we do for school districts is that every 10 years we update a survey. We go around to every building on the campus. We make sure that we have an understanding of exactly what is necessary from a health and life safety standpoint. And I would encourage a study like this where we recognize what still needs improvement every 10 years at a minimum. And I think that's an excellent way to ensure that we're still making progress. Our third resolution, adopting facility standards. This is a hard one because it means that some people might reduce the amount of space that they're using, but it also might mean that there are some people that are increasing. Unfortunately, change is hard, but nevertheless, I think it's something that would benefit a lot of spaces. Now, as you look at some of this, we have columns and we have windows that have all these mullions associated with them, and they have sort of forced a lot. with the outside envelope of the building. And so you can only put walls every so often, you can only put HVAC every so often. This is just the reality of the building. So one of our encouragements was actually to try and push offices toward the inside. This is a more common way of designing these days. And then we can detach from some of the exterior envelope and consider some of that open office workstations. Resolution 4 is about optimization of storage. Boy, oh boy. We of course recognize that you can't digitize everything, but wherever you can, please do. There should be a little bit of a regular culling schedule that's associated with it, but I recognize that we are a public body. You have to keep some of these things. It's going to be there for as long as we exist. But embracing density in that case could really help with some of this. We showed, even on the next page here in front of Resolution 5, some of the high-density storage solutions that are out there that would really help in terms of categorization, in terms of filing, in terms of reporting, and in terms of space usage. So really can't recommend that one enough because that would solve a heck of a lot of problems, recognizing all of the challenges that we've had with storage across the building. I'd also like to add that with storage, there are a number of rooms around the building that have ended up with pieces of desks or pieces of workstations. And those are by necessity kept somewhere because we have a zillion different styles of desks and workstations and things that we need to be able to reconfigure as the building is and people are modified. What ends up happening, however, is because those are aging and because they are not all the same, you end up having to store pieces of those somewhere, and now we have underutilized storage, and we have excess junk that may or may not be cataloged or dated correctly. So it's very difficult to keep up with some of that. We also recommended some security and privacy enhancements. As far as security audit, one of those was actually completed as part of this ongoing process. But we recognize that the mezzanine has created some challenges in how that operates. We've provided a few recommendations regarding technological enhancements. The big word is AI right now, right? And how do we implement AI? Listen, I'm not the guy who knows how to do all of that, but I can tell you that you probably should look into how an implementation plan for AI could change some of your work environment. Some of those things, for instance, might involve, hey, we're online, we should be able to type in, get a chat, get those first 30 seconds of direction and information out of the way so that we can have something of more substance before it even gets to county employees. Some of that might involve, there's some hybrid work policies and how we could ensure security between off-site work and on-site work. There are a number of different ways to resolve a lot of that. And then finally, access and navigability. Certainly, last but not least, we suggested that we might actually close down the Front Street entrance and instead enable the Washington Street entrance to be the primary entrance. Not that you couldn't exit out of the Front Street, you can always do that. And not that we couldn't put a card reader for employee access or something like that. But creating an entrance that is primary would help to alleviate a lot of confusion. The other thing it would do is it would enable an opportunity for us to create sort of a front office and back office so that there's a true lobby space instead of this strung out corridor that tries to tie everything together. So I think there's a lot of conversation to be had with that. And then there's 200 pages of survey results if you want those, be my guest. I would love to share all of that with you. We got really excited about it as we heard back from everyone. But in short, I would just add that we didn't get everybody. We would have loved to have had everybody respond, but we got a substantive response that we think really does reflect a lot of the folks who care about this facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Charnett, for all your work on this effort, but also for your presentation this evening.
Yeah. Any questions? Should I stay for any
Any
questions?
additional questions from the committee? Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Charnett. Excited
enjoy.
to hear.
Thank you.
All right. Did you have any additional information, Administrator Taylor? please?
Yes, please, if
All
I
right.
may.
Yeah, please
I
do.
have one other item for information, and that is a reminder that I'm giving to all the committees. Everyone who has a McLean County email, including board members or department heads, this is mainly directed towards you. Please see that all of your employees complete the Know Before trainings on cybersecurity. That is a requirement as directed by the board that we want to maintain our security in our systems, our internal systems. Secondly, you should have received an email from that same system on sexual harassment training. That is a requirement of every employee of McLean County as mandated by the state. So please get those done in a timely way.
Thank you very much, Administrator Taylor, for those reminders. This brings us along to our other business and communications. As a heads up, everybody, our next meeting is going to be on December 7th at 5 p.m. You'll also see item number 5B, our 2024 meeting dates. Go ahead and get those in your calendars now for more property fun along the way. There any other items for communication from the committee? Yeah, Vice Chair Zollner, please.
Thank you. So I want to go back to our speaker from the Vantage Group. And so obviously that wasn't really enough time to get into it very deeply. What's the plan? Are we gonna make this an agenda item at a meeting, or are we gonna have a special meeting, or what's the plan? And again, we didn't have opportunity to ask questions, and we can't do that. I realize that with a speaker. So anyhow, I just wondered what the plan was from here.
So this is a very preliminary for us, being in receipt of this information. We received it last week. And so the next steps would be to form a meeting with property committee leadership and the city to discuss this plan, discuss what it would mean to give up the parking deck, and to see what next steps the two entities would like to pursue together. As you know, we jointly own that parking lot. And so this would be conversations with both city and town, or excuse me, city and county. So that's the next step.
Other comments or questions? All right. Thank you all very much for your service to the county. This meeting is adjourned.